Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. You ready for another episode of my Bigfoot sighting? Alright then, let's do this.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves and the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and lead into what my actual experience was. In late July of 2017, the night that this started, it was a very hot, very muggy night. So we have window AC units in our home. It's a double wide trailer. It's not a pillar house or block and mortar or whatever. Where my bedroom window was at was 5 feet from the tree line. There's two pines that are growing right next to each other, right next to my bedroom window. That particular set of trees, I believe, was probably about 3 feet across. So if I looked out my bedroom window to the right, I could see the trees. I could not see the split between the trees. So if something wanted to, it could stand right there and disappear, or it could just run into the tree line and it would be gone. Keep in mind and remember that this tree line's only about 5 feet from my bedroom window. The house is setting off at the ground again from an angle or on kind of a slope. So it's about 2 feet off of the ground where the frame is of this mobile home at my bedroom window. When you get to the double bedroom on the other end of the house where my kids' bedrooms are or were, there's almost 4 feet of a gap between the floor and the base of the house. This all started with my son waking me up and telling me that he thought he seen something looking in his window. I said, "Oh, that's ridiculous, dude. We're in the middle of the country. Ain't nothing looking through your window." So I blew it off. I feel as if I'm an idiot for doing that. But, I did. I didn't pay attention to my kid when he said something about it. And that, I really feel like we all need to do that. I'm going to give you sort of a location. And I want to express a cautionary thing out there. When I tell you this and where it is generally located, please do not try going down there and locating these things. They are very aggressive, these particular ones that I dealt with. They are not something you want to go in those woods looking for because you will never be seen again, I promise you. Where this happened at was in the Arklatex area, which is Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas. It's in the East Texas Big Thicket. A lot of people think that Texas is just flat or desert. It's not. There's some really thick woods there. Where we lived at this time is by a lake called Lake of the Pines. And this lake is roughly about 5 to 10 miles as you're driving the roads to get to. As the bird fly is only about 4. And it's north and northeast of where I lived at. But there's a smaller pond called Deerwood that is just to the right of my house. And my house is sitting on roughly about 2.5 to 3 acres of property. There's a road that you come down, which is my road, and it keeps going straight. And there's another road that winds off and goes into a different direction. And then there's a road just on the other side of all of the thicket that's in front of my house. My closest neighbor is my neighbor behind me. It literally just right behind me, but he's never there, and his house looks like it's falling through and stuff like that. My next neighbor is across the street and then across the Y, and she's right there, which is one of my cousin's friends. Other than that, my house is pretty well surrounded by woods. I mean, in every direction. There's the road. My house is right next to the tree line. If you're looking south, to the tree line to the right of the field. And then behind my house, there's a good 30 to 40, well, let me restate that. There's about 50 to 55, 60 yard gap from my house to the wooden privacy fence. There was only like 6 panels of this wooden privacy fence that was still up. I had just bought the house. The privacy fence was falling down and stuff like that. And then there was a shed right probably about 22 degrees as you walked out my back door, and you look just to your left, there's a shed right there. And the roof of it is about 12 feet off of the ground where the eave of it is, the eave pitch. And then you turn left, and about 20 yards from there, there's another bigger shed. And then right behind all of this stuff is all woods. From the privacy fence is where that next door neighbor lives at, the one behind me. And then once you gap that fence and you start going, it's all woods right there. And then there's the open field clearing right there, which is a good, good acre and a half of just open property. It's just grass. And, across the street is just woods. Down to the tip of the Y, it's woods, and then it's marshland and stuff down in there, which I've actually tried to walk through, and I stepped down in, and it's sunk all the way, about 4 inches above my knee. I'm 6 foot. So, that's a good 3 foot of leg that I lost in the freaking mud. There's only one street light, and it's at the end of my driveway. And from my porch to the street where the mailbox is, at the end of my driveway is a good 20, 25 yards. There's tree line all the way down. If you're looking south, that right hand side of my property, from the street all the way to the privacy fence. And then that continues over to the next door neighbor, who is roughly about a half a mile away. It's thick woods. I mean, at night you can't see anything in those woods. I mean, maybe silhouettes. Unless you're looking over across the street, you're definitely going to see silhouettes, because the next street light is across from there, which is the neighbors. Okay, so now that I've given you this layout, I'm going to get down to the story. My son comes to me and tells me he's seen something looking at him through the window. I tell him, that's crazy. We live in the country. There's nothing out here that can look through that window. The base of that window is roughly 5.5 feet off the ground. Nothing's looking through that window. He goes, no, something was looking through that window. It was kneeled down and it was looking through the crack of the curtain right at me. It tapped on the glass. It woke me up. Okay. So I go outside. I have security lights in the back. They're on. Why they're on, I don't know. Maybe something ran through there. And then I have a front porch light, which I leave on at night. I walk outside. I walk around the house. There's tin skirting around the bottom of this house at this point in time. And it's muddy outside. I don't see any footprints or anything like that. So I come back in the house and I tell him, I say, come out to the living room. I'll chill with you for a little bit. I'll get you some hot chocolate. We'll watch a movie or something and go back to sleep. My son is roughly 7 at the time, about to turn 8 or so. Or rather, he had just turned 8 because his birthday is in June. This is the end of July. He had just turned 8, I believe. So we're sitting there and I hear what sounds like rocks being thrown at the side of my house. It's highly unusual. It's I don't know if I remember correctly. It's later in the night. It's probably like 12 o'clock, midnight, somewhere in there. I get up and I go to the back door and I open the back door and there's like river rocks and they're laying on next to my house. Like they bounced off of my house. You could see where it cracked the siding of this trailer. Oh, that's crazy. I wasn't there like that when I just walked around the house. So I call 911 and the sheriff didn't show up. There's no law enforcement in this town. You have to understand it's way back in the backwoods. The only law enforcement there is county sheriffs or game wardens. A game warden shows up and he, is talking to me. He's telling me, oh, what was it that you heard? Da, 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 whatever. Because he was in the area. He was the first one to respond. I told him, I said, something had tapped on my son's window. He said that he's seen it. He didn't explain to me what it looked like. He just said that, he's seen the eye of it and that's it. Like it wasn't really detailed. He just said it was brown or whatever. And it looked like somebody looking in the window. And then I go outside and I check and I come back in the house and I'm sitting with my son. We're watching a little bit of TV. I had made him hot cocoa. And on the back of my house, I hear a thump, thump, thump. And then I'm like, oh, what the heck is that? And then I hear another one, thump. And that's it. Just 4 rocks. I come and look out the back door to my left. There's 4, good sized 2-inch in diameter river rocks that are probably about an inch thick that had been thrown at my house and created holes in it. And he's like, oh, it's probably just some kid, out here. Dude, it's midnight. There's no kids out running around out here. He's like, oh, I mean, the worst case scenario is, it could be somebody using drugs that are out here messing around. I was like, that's a possibility. So I chalked it up to that. I went and closed my son's curtain all the way and then hung another, like a thicker sheet, like a flannel sheet up over it, cotton sheet. So that way nothing could see in there. And I went and checked on my other son, who was roughly about 6 at the time. And I go to bed. I'm laying there and my ex-wife is laying next to me and she's dead out. She's not waking up for anything. I hear tapping on my window. Keep in mind, this is a start of a very long experience with these things. I hear tapping on my window. What the heck is that? So I open up the window. Nothing's there. So, okay, well, it's just probably these people messing around, I have 2 dogs. No, I have 3 dogs at the time. I'm sorry. I have a very large spotted pit bull named Wyatt. And then I have 2 pit bull Labrador mixes, and they're fairly short. They're only about 1.5 feet off the ground. All 3 of these dogs are aggressive. They're not. When they're in that yard, they're aggressive. They're on their chain. They're aggressive. You should not approach them. They will bite you, type of thing. All 3 of them, when I went outside after hearing the tap on my window, were completely under the house, cowering and not making a daggum sound. I said, what the heck's going on? If there's people out here messing around, you guys need to get on point and do your job. You need to let me know if something's out here. They're cowered under the house. They're not coming out. There was an opening at the back of the house where the skirt was taken off because of a plumbing issue, and I hadn't yet put it back on yet. And that's where they ran into under the house. They were tied up to 2 posts and a fig tree in the backyard, and they ran under the house that way. Said, okay, well, whatever, I went back inside, I laid down. Nothing really much more happened that night other than some small noises here and there that I just chalked up to, mice or whatever. And the next day, I had to take the rest of the skirting off of the house. The reason why I didn't put that other piece of skirting back, so I had to take that whole side off from the kitchen window in the back all the way around to the side on the front, because I had to replace all of the piping under the house for the septic and for the fill line. And I had done that. I had started digging the trench for the fill line and all that stuff. And that night, I was laying in bed after I'd already got everybody to sleep and whatever. And, the kids had a bath, ate dinner and all that good stuff. And they're in their room asleep. And I go to lay down and I hear what sounds like somebody banging on the side of my house with the base of their fist. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna catch whoever this is that's doing it. I'm going to walk out the front door and then come around the other side where they're doing it at and catch them in the act. Before I did this, I grabbed a gun. So, I'm not playing with these guys. I'm tired of this. They're looking in my kid's window, stuff like that. Whoever it is either going to get shot or go to jail. Period. That's it. I go around that side and there's nothing there. Not one thing. And then I walked around the entire house, and that's when the first time I ever noticed eye shine was that night. I looked across the street where the Y was at, and and it tripped me out because what I seen was an eye that was open and it was glaring. I want to say it's the same color as what RC or whoever it was talking about these things in the woods at the beginning, was like a coal lantern where it was like a yellowish, reddish, orangish color, and from the distance I was looking at it, it was like at least the size of a golf ball, like the whole lit up area. Or maybe, the size of a huge marble. I was like, what the heck is that? I could just be seeing something. It shut its eye, or, took its head back behind the tree or whatever. It's just, what the heck is that? And then all of a sudden I seen it pop back open, or, it leaned its head back out or whatever. I couldn't really tell what it was because my eyes are bad in the dark, and I can't tell what that is from that distance. I'm like, what the heck is that? And then on the back side of the house where the privacy fence is, I hear a bang. So I walked around back to the back side of the house, and I look back by the privacy fence, and I just see brushes moving. And I hear something that is bipedal running through the woods. I'm assuming it's a person. So I point my gun towards the ground, and I let off 4 or 5 shots. And I say, don't come back around here. I'm going to shoot you. I'm not playing. I go back in the house after about an hour of being out there. I smoked a cigarette and stuff like that. And I went back in the house, and all of a sudden it started. This is where I was just barraged with noises and bangs and ticks and whistles and sounds like that. This is where the start of all that is. I had heard thumping on the side of the house. I heard what sounded like somebody knocking on the side of the house. And then I heard coos and whistles, and this is what you would call samurai chatter and stuff like that. It's like, what the heck is going on? I go back outside and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And the woods that are right next to my house, all I can hear is chippers and clicks and whistles and mumbles and small growls. It's not just one set of vocals coming from those woods. There's at least 4 or 5 vocals coming from that side. And then all of a sudden I hear it come from across the street, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. I couldn't figure it out. For the life of me, even growing up, hearing all of these stories growing up, I could not figure out what the heck was going on. I said, okay, I'm going to go back in the house. I'm not coming back out here tonight. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's people. I don't know if somebody's messing around. I'm starting to think that I'm crazy. This isn't happening. I go in the house and I just ignore it as best as I can, but it's keeping me up. And this goes on for at least 3.5, 4 months. This occurred at the end of July. By the mid to end of November, there had been numerous occasions where things are being thrown at my house, things are being, broken, and things are being, tapping on my house and screaming and yelling and hooting and hollering and stuff being banged in the woods. From the time this started until I started talking to somebody about it, I told my ex-wife, I said, there's something knocking and banging on the house. Had been about 3 weeks. And she was just like, oh, you're crazy. There's nothing out there. You know, you're getting in your head. You know, are you smoking dope or, you know, what's wrong with you? Da, da, da. I told her, I said, no. I'm fairly sure I could be crazy, but you know, I'm pretty sure that, you know, this is actually going on. She's sitting outside with me. It's about 9:30 at night. And every night, this is about the time it would start, is around 9:30. I don't know why this particular time at night. It always happened around 9:30. She's sitting outside on the front porch with me, which is more of a landing. It's only, you know, 5 feet long by 3.5, 4 feet wide. But we have 2 chairs up there and we're sitting up there and we're smoking a cigarette. And I told her, I was talking to her about it, and I told her, I said, I'm not joking with you. And then all of a sudden, the distance to our right, we heard a clack, clack. Woo! Something had banged on a tree and then called out. Right behind our house, behind the second shed that's, you know, 30, 35 yards out away from the house, 40 yards, something like that. We heard a series of clacks, banging on tree. It was 1, then 2, and then 4 in response to the 2 that it had over there on the other side. And then I heard a whoop, whoop, whoop come from that area. And then to the left of me, we heard a clack, clack. And then something broke a branch off. It sounded like it was up in the tree, but something broke a branch off and threw it up into the treetops, into the canopy of the trees right next to my house. And this isn't that far away from my house. This is, you know, maybe 30 yards max away from my house is doing this. And my ex-wife gets freaked out. She was like, oh, no. You got somebody out here messing with me. And she runs into the house and locks the door on me and leaves me outside. So I'm like, okay, great. You know, now I got to figure out how to get in the house. That's when I notice eye shine across the street again. I notice one pair to the right of it, 6 or 7 feet, another pair to the right of that, 6 or 7 feet, maybe closer, another pair. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at, you know, 5 or 6 pairs of eye shine across the street. And I'm like, holy cow, what is going on? You know, and I see silhouettes. And it's, by the time I see this eye shine, it's probably 10:30, 10:45 at night. I see silhouettes. So, you know, I hear again to the left of me something over there chattering. And it's like it's trying to get my attention off of the things in front of me. So I kind of look to my left and or using my peripheral vision to look to the right to see the eye shine still. I see a set of eyes pop up, the eye shine, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. By the time it was all said and done, I had been looking at least 13 different pairs of eye shines. And I know this because the ones to the left of me were all still open when the ones to the right of me were just starting to disappear and still kind of open. And then right behind me to the right of my house, where I told you guys that I had taken the skirting off, the face of the house still had skirting, but that side that was facing east was not. It was already off. And as soon as I did that, I turned and looked to the right because I felt something like staring at me from over there. I was like, I'm going to turn and look. All I seen was like the glimpse of a hairy hand and long hair coming off of the forearm and it snagging on the corner of that tin and it going, boom. As it took off, it stepped on the tin plating and had left a somewhat of a muddy footprint on that corrugated tin that was laying on the ground. And then it was gone. And then all of a sudden, no more noise, nothing. All the eye shine's gone. So I get up and I walk over there and I look, because it's pretty well lit right there because of the street light and whatnot. And I look and there's nothing over there, but I look down and there's, a smeared footprint on this tin. I go, oh man, that's somebody's either, if they're playing a practical joke, this is a really big false foot, or this is something that's really actually going on. I went outside the next day to measure it. After I got back in the house that night, I went to bed. I wasn't worried about this anymore. I got tired of dealing with it. I went outside to go measure it, and it had rained overnight, so it washed all that off of the tin. But if I remember correctly, that footprint was easily 15 inches or maybe even in excess of 17 to 18 inches. But it smeared, so I couldn't really tell exactly how long it was, because where it stepped at, it stepped down and it slid kind of back into the left, like to the inside of the left leg from the right. And then its toes picked up and left those little dots on it when it picked it up. However, I did find some footprints going over the field line and stuff like that. And it was just heel prints. It wasn't even toe indentions. It was just pretty much heel prints. And I don't know why it would have been like that or whatever, but they weren't, anybody in my family. Our hills are not 5 inches across, and 2. And I'm in amazement as to what is actually going on. So I was like, it dawned on me, I'm going to go over there and check where that branch came from. And I'm looking around and I see, in Texas, we call them widowmakers or dog legs, stuff like that, where a tree is broken in half and is hanging on to the branches of another tree. And it's still got a solid piece inside of the tree. It's a dog leg. It's a hawk. The widowmaker is where a branch or the top of a tree or something is broken off from the other tree and landing onto the tree next to it or a surrounding tree, and it's still landing on that same tree that it came off of or whatever. It's just, if the wind blows, it can fall and kill you. Well, I look up and there's a widowmaker up there, and this branch is easily 5 inches in diameter and is from a pine tree, and it's a green limb. It's just twisted and snapped right off, like how you would do a wet toothpick or rope even. So I was like, I'm going to find out where that came from. So I walked down in there a little bit, and there's this old abandoned, like, it's a house, but it looks more like a shack, like a shanty. Anyway, there's an oak tree and a pine tree right next to each other, next to this abandoned house that's been ran down. It's got holes in the walls. It's rotting. It's got trash all in it and whatnot. In that pine tree, about 8 feet up, there's a nub where I want to say it was 5 inches in diameter. I mean, it could have been 4, but it was twisted and snapped off of that tree. From the point where that branch is at to the point where it was snapped off of that tree was easily, I mean easily 40, 45, 50 yards, somewhere in the area. That branch was still hanging up in the top of the canopy of those trees, and it had fallen down a little bit. The next night, I'm outside, and it's roughly about 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'm going outside. I'm like, I'm feeding the dogs. I'm doing all this stuff, and I hear a bang, boom, boom, boom. I look up, and this huge rock, and I mean, it's easily a 10-pound rock, has been thrown onto the roof of my house and is rolling down the backside of my house, and it has landed, 5-10 feet away from me. And my cousin Zach was standing in the doorway when that fell. So we both kind of flipped out, and I was like, I know you seen that. I know you heard that. I'm not crazy, right? He's like, no, yeah, I definitely seen it. I gotta go. Bye. So he takes off, and I'm sitting outside all by myself, and this is where the smell comes in. I smelt something that smelt like the bottom of a trash can that you leave out at the curbside for the trash truck to come pick up. And in the middle of summer, it's got meat juices and maggots and stuff all down at the bottom of it, eggshells and stuff like that. It smells like that, plus locker room BO at a boys' high school. And I'm just like, oh my God, what is that smell, And I was like, oh, I got to get in the house. This stuff stinks. I was like, did I burn something? Because we burned our trash. Did I burn something that could smell like that? I mean, did something get killed off in the woods? What's going on? And I remember that smell hitting me, and I could taste it. And it was so bad that my eyes actually started watering. And my nose just was like, oh, God, get out of here. I get in the house, and I shut all the door, the back and the front door, and start closing the windows and stuff. Because, whatever this is, I don't want it knocking on, or opening up the window and grabbing my kids or anything like that. That night, my wife had wrecked one of our cars, or our car rather. And it was a 2005 Hyundai Santa Fe. And the front end of it was all messed up, and it was sitting right next to the house, at the back of the house, because I was, getting rid of it or whatever, and I had to have it there to have the record drop it off right there or whatever. Anyway, I hear what sounds like a crushing sound, or like glass being broken. And it just dawned on me that, there's this vehicle in the backyard. I look out the kitchen window and I don't see anything. And then I hear it again. And I don't even bother looking because I don't even want to know. And I hear it again. The only two windows that face out the back of the house is the one in the dining room and the one in the kitchen. And they were, I think, exactly 10 feet apart. I looked through both of those and didn't see anything. And then I hear it again. And I'm like, oh, God. So I get up and I go look out the dining room window, and the hatchback glass, the liftgate glass on this truck had been busted out with a rock. And I don't see anything out of the norm other than the windows being broken or whatever. And I'm not about to go out there in the middle of the night and go look at this, and at night and go look at this, because, I've already been creeped out enough. My dogs start actually going off and snapping at the end of their chains and stuff. And I actually had to go outside and let them off of the chains because I didn't want them to, hurt themselves or anything. And then I go back in the house and I shut and lock the door and I turn off the kitchen light and all that stuff. And all of a sudden I hear Delilah, which is one of the pit lab mixes. She's a golden color, like the lab, under the house, growling from one end of the house and walking to the next, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. This goes on for 20, 25 minutes. I said, okay, I got to figure this out. I get up, I go outside, I have my gun, nothing's out there. I look under the house, I call Delilah. Here, girl, come here, Lila. She comes out, she's wagging her tail at me. She turns and looks to the right, and I turn and look to the right with her as she's doing it, because it felt like something was watching me. And all I see is this massive silhouette. If I can judge it correctly, I would say it was about 10, 11 feet tall. And I just see the silhouette of it. I don't even see eye shine or anything like that. And I smell that smell again, because the wind picked up and blew from that direction to mine. Now I'm upwind of whatever is downwind from me, and I smell it. And it just blows my mind. I'm like, what the heck is that smell? And my dogs all take off. They're gone. They're under the house. So I'm in the house. I'm done. I'm going inside. I shut the door. I lock it. And it got to the point to where I had to get a hold of somebody who could help me out with this. So I got a hold of somebody. I'm not going to mention any names. I got a hold of somebody and they referred me to somebody else. Well, at one point, somebody had told me to feed them. I said, "You're crazy. It's a wild animal. I'm not feeding anything." I got a hold of this person that this guy had told me to get a hold of, and I talked with this guy. Somebody else had told me to put distilled vinegar and aqua velvet aftershave out there and stuff. And I was like, I did that. It didn't work. So I talked to this guy that actually, felt like he knew some stuff. And he told me to, because we have a burn pile and sometimes the food doesn't exactly burn, to stop burning it in a drum or whatever and to actually dig a hole, drop it down in there and light it on fire and burn it as much as you can. And then, you cover it with bleach or whatever. And then once you get that hole filled full enough, you just cover it with dirt. And then when you feed your dogs in the house. You don't want any type of food source out there for them. Because when you're feeding them unknowingly and you take its food source away and you don't know that you did that, they become highly aggressive. Apparently I was feeding them and didn't know about it. I took their food source away. So they got even more aggressive. This is where the shaking of the house and stuff like that came from. They were shaking my house to the point where it had woken up my kids. It had woken up my ex-wife and stuff like that. And, this is going to sound funny, but, I feel like it really helped. As one of the deterrents, I went around the property line and I urinated on the property line. Anytime I had to urinate, I went out and I urinated on the property line. And that helped somewhat. I mean, I didn't have as much experience with them after that as I was when this first started. There's a lot of things that happen that I kind of just want to keep to myself. Because I feel ashamed that this stuff happened. So anyway, at one point I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but I feel like maybe I should. At one point, and this is the only time I actually had a visual of these things. There were two of them in my backyard. When people say they're afraid of lights, I do not believe that. I do not believe that they're afraid of light because the floodlights that I had in my backyard were extremely bright. Each bulb was around 800 lumens, so it lit up like a ballpark. I watched one of them because I heard a noise in my backyard. I watched one of them walk up to the gate where because I quit putting my dogs on chains, I had to build a little fence to keep my two smaller dogs in it because they were getting out and going and getting in people's trash and stuff. And I didn't want to be that neighbor, It had went up and yanked the swinging gate. Well, let me restart. I heard a noise. I got up. It was probably about 9:30 at night, somewhere in that area. Maybe 10 o'clock. I heard a noise. It sounded like something like screaming, like a child screaming. So I get up and I look out the back window, the kitchen window, and there's two of these things in my backyard. There's one standing. Remember I told you the shed was about the pitch of the eave was about 12 feet off the ground. This thing's head on both of, one was a little shorter than the other, about probably a half a foot or so. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. Not that I gained that detail or anything, but I can't specify as how tall it was. The tallest one was standing by that shed because the pen was built next to that shed. And the gate was by the door of that shed. And this thing was standing right there. And its head was just about level or even with that eave of that shed. So I'm guessing that's 12 feet tall because I had torn that shed down some days after that. And I had measured from the top to the floor to the ground where it was exactly 12 feet. It grabbed this 30-pound swinging fence gate off of the post, yanking the metal and twisting it, and then lopping it. It threw that gate all the way to the second shed. Remember, keep in mind, I said that's like 30, 35, 40 yards from that other shed. It's quite a distance. My dogs bolted. They got out of there. They're fast little dogs. The other one was standing just to the right of it, and it was looking over at it. And I screamed. I was like, "Hey!" And it looked at me. It turned and looked at me. It took, I don't know, I want to say 2, 3, 4 steps, and it was at my kitchen window. The top of my kitchen window was 10 feet off of the ground. It had to kneel down to look in my window. I ducked back to the other side of the wall. I hear tapping on the glass, which sounded like the point of a 16-penny nail being tapped on my glass of my kitchen window. The only thing that I could do was to call my uncle. I called my Uncle Bubba. And I absolutely freaked out. I was like, maybe it's gone because it quit making that tapping noise. It quit making a sound. I leaned back over to look out the window, and it's face to face with me while I'm on the phone with my uncle. I'm absolutely just hysterical. I'm welling up. I'm crying. My nose is running. I'm flipping out. I told my Uncle Bubba, I said, "Man, I thought you said monsters weren't real. I'm looking at this thing right in its face. I need you to come down here and help me out. I don't know what to do." He's like, "I'm not coming down there. There's no way. I've seen these things. I'm not dealing with it." "Oh, great. Thanks. Appreciate you." My gun's in the other room. Not that it would have done any good to, dispatch this freaking thing. It's a 9mm, and that thing is huge. That's like me shooting a bull elephant with a 22. It's not going to work. I'm looking at this thing dead in its eyes, and I have never felt the way that I felt like this ever a day in my life, nor have I since so far. I felt this, I want to say primal fear, where I was just frozen. I stopped talking to my uncle and everything. Without knowing it, I had hung up on my uncle, and my phone had been set down on the counter. I'm doing things that I don't realize I'm doing because I'm locked in on this thing staring at me. All of a sudden, it opens its mouth a little bit. It curls its lips back and shows me its teeth. And then it just, I can't describe if it made any sounds or whatever during this time frame. It felt like an eternity. It may have only just been a couple of seconds, but it felt like an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours to me. It curled its lips up, showed me its teeth, and then it just stared at me. And then I just seen drool running out of its mouth, like it was spitting, as it was like had its teeth closed like this. Not that you can see me, but it's like as if a person were talking through their teeth with their lips curled up. It had a very pronounced brow ridge. It had very human-like eyes. And I mean human-like. I mean, this thing had brown eyes, like a human and a dog combined eyes type of thing, that color brown. And its hair wasn't exactly long. It did not have a conical shape on its head. Its shoulders, its lats, its shoulders and everything were so big that, let's put it like this. The only thing I could see through my kitchen window would be as if you made a bust of somebody. That's it. Normally when, if you look out of a kitchen window and somebody's standing right there, like say it's ground level with somebody, you can see either side of their shoulders. I couldn't see that. The hand raised up and it tapped on the glass again, and I looked at its hand, its hand had hair on it, but it wasn't so thick and it wasn't so long. But its nails were like almost like a black color. Its skin was like a black charcoal color. Its hair seemed to kind of change color. It was brownish, blackish, reddish color. The other one was the same color. It's sorry, I'm kind of reliving that moment. Its fingernails were not exactly long. They were like as if they were manicured, but bitten off manicured, you know, like people bite their nails. Very large hands. I mean, like a catcher's mitt size hands. I mean, I could see its muscle and its arm, like in its shoulder and stuff, flex when it moved its hand up. This was not a joke. This was not a hoax. This was not a practical joke that somebody was playing on me. This is not somebody who is got a drug problem that's out in the woods messing with me. This, as far as I know, that I'm looking at is a Bigfoot. This is an animal. This is an animal that's looking at me like it wants to eat me. It will harm me. It's not playing around. And that's exactly the feeling that I got from it. It wasn't, no, oh, come outside, let's play. I want to leave you trinkets. I want to do this. No, this is, I'm going to kill you. I want to eat you type of stare down that we're having. The other one kind of caught my attention and turned and faced me, and it faced its buddy and it went, that's the same noise that I had been hearing outside of my bedroom window for months. And I'm going to make that noise because I heard what I heard. You know, it was that's what I heard. I looked it up. They call it samurai chatter. I don't know why. I don't know how, but I couldn't move the whole time this thing was staring at me. When it turned and went to go walk away, right before it did it, it goes whoop, into my face. And I'm talking, the only thing separating me in this thing is an 1/8-inch piece of glass and 5 inches. That's it. That's it. It was so close to the kitchen window that when it breathed, it would breathe the hot air onto the window and it would fog up a little bit. This is well into fall. This is, November when this has happened. I don't know why I was leaned over the kitchen sink, but I'm assuming it was only like 2.5 inches before each one of us touched that glass. After it made the whoosh sound, it chippered. Then it turned and walked away. And, well, it didn't walk away. I'm sorry. They both hightailed it out of there. The one was closest to the shed, ran and was gone very quickly because it just disappeared behind the shed into the woods. The other one didn't follow that same path. It went around the outside of the other shed and it was gone. And it seemed like, and when I say fast, I mean fast. As soon as it turned around, it was gone. There was nothing else to see of it type of thing. It seemed like it only took about 10 steps or so, and then it was through those woods and gone. All I could see then was just branches shaking. That was it. I still, to this day, cannot go into any type of woods like that, and I cannot think about what's in those woods. I don't want to know. I don't want to mess with it. I have completely given up a life in those woods. I'm not going to search for these things. I don't care who says what. That's not my mentality. I have 4 kids and a soon-to-be wife that, I have to think about. I moved from Texas back to Arizona. I'm from Texas. I moved to Arizona in '03 and been off and on out here since '03. But I moved back to Arizona and will not go back to anywhere in the South because of these things. I know they're there. I currently live in Phoenix. It's a city. They're not here. They're not in the city. I don't have to worry about them. I've never been afraid of anything in my life. And that one experience has given me such a fear for these things that I don't even want to venture into a tree line where it's only like 3 trees deep and then you go to the other side and it's another city. I don't even want to do that. I want to stay as far away from the trees that I can. So that happened, I want to say roughly about 4 or 5 months. The whole time I had been hearing the samurai calling and the chirping and the knocking on the wood and stuff like that. And then I was like, I got to move. So we moved 10 miles away from there or so, roughly about 10 miles. We moved closer to the Lake of the Pines. Now the Lake of the Pines is only, a 2-minute drive from my house type of thing. Unfortunately, where we moved to, my nanny and papa used to live on the same property up on the hill. And this is where some of their stories they came from as well. Like they walked out on the back porch and seen one eating muscadine berries in their backyard. And their porch never had back steps where they lived at there. I was young. I was like 3 years old the first time I ever met my nanny and papa. And this is the house they lived in. Well, not even 100 yards in the southeast direction as you go out from the back porch of that house that they rented from this old man was my house that I was currently living in at the time. The one I moved to from the other one where all this stuff had gone on. I didn't realize that until this old man and I started talking and he told me that he knew my nanny and papa. I said, "Oh, really? Oh, okay. Cool. Great. I'm thinking, maybe it's just a territorial thing. Maybe I just pissed some off that are, over there. But, maybe I made them mad and they're over there. Maybe they don't come over this way. Maybe they don't, want to come over here and bother me." It's not the case. It's not what happened. I lived there for 3.5 months, and the entire 3.5 months I was there, I was terrorized. Mostly because my neighbor fished and hunted a lot, and he would always dump the carcasses and stuff on the other side of my house in a field. And that's where they all would go and eat off those carcasses and stuff. And then there was muscadine berries all over the place because the old man made muscadine wine, and he had rows and rows of these berries everywhere. And then there was rows and rows of dewberries and stuff like that. And then there was deer all over the place. So, there's 2 ponds on this property. I'm like, oh, great. I walked right in the middle of a food source. At that house, it got bad. One of my dogs came up missing. I later found her in the woods dead. My kids were constantly being woken up telling me that something is outside their window and it's like licking the glass. And again, these windows are 6 feet off the ground. It's not no average human can. I have to literally pull myself up to even look in the window. It's the base of the window, the frame of the window is eye level with me. So I have to get up on my tippy toes and look in there. Something yanked the doorknob off of the back door, not knowing that door had been screwed shut and walled over on the inside. But something had yanked the doorknob off of that back door. And then my neighbor across the way a little bit had some chickens and a little garden growing out there. And something had gotten over there and eaten his chickens and just tore all the feathers off of it and consumed it right there type of thing. And then had eaten all of his squash and stuff down to the ground. I mean, they ate the plant, the fruit, everything. I came outside one day and there was a half-eaten deer carcass in my front yard. I mean, the bones from the fish and stuff like that and the heads and stuff were picked up and thrown at my house. This kind of stuff went on for about 3.5 months. I moved out of there and moved down the street from one of my uncles into my nanny's old trailer house at Lake of the Pines. And I heard whoops and stuff over there. It wasn't too bad. I didn't see anything over there. From that point, I actually moved back to Arizona from then. At both of the places where I had experiences, I had seen eye shine, I had seen silhouettes, I heard noises. I felt like my family was threatened the entire time, being helpless at both of these places and stuff like that. And I started out listening to Dogman Encounters, and then I found a YouTube channel which linked me to Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio, and I listened to that. And the thing is that Vic really helped me out without even knowing it, just playing these encounters and stuff like that. And it made me feel like I wasn't crazy. You know what I mean? Because I was really feeling like I was going insane. Like, I'm crazy. I'm insane, man. I don't know what's going on with me. And it made me feel like I wasn't alone. Again, there's some things that happened that I really don't want to discuss because I'm embarrassed by it. You know, I shouldn't have done what I've done. But I didn't know any other way to deal with this stuff. And it was an issue for me because I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I couldn't get the stuff off of my chest. And it's been this whole time from 2017 until now, I've only talked to 3 people about this. My current girlfriend, my uncle who was on the phone with me, and then one of my other uncles. I haven't mentioned this to anybody else. It's hard to open up about these things because you feel like you're crazy and you feel like you're going to be judged. You feel like, you know, it's just the persecution that comes from it is not worth actually being, you know, having to get this off your chest. I hear of people getting persecuted and saying, oh, it's just a hoax. It's fake. It's nothing. It's this. It's that. Until you experience it, you can't tell me what I did and did not go through was real or not. It's messed my life up to the point where I can't do the things that I used to love doing. I can't go into the woods and go camping like I used to. I can't go in the woods and go fishing overnight like I used to. It really destroyed the innocence of the woods for me. And that's really, for lack of a better word, sucks for me because that's what I used to love doing. Now I don't care where I'm at. If I'm anywhere near woods, my head's on a swivel. I'm not even playing around with these things. It's not, you know, I keep an eye out on my kids, you know, whatever. We go to the lake and my kids are right there with me. I don't get outside of 10 feet of them. But again, you know, I live in Phoenix. The lakes that we have around here is not very many trees around it. It's all just, you know, mesquites and brush and cactus and stuff like that. When we were living in Texas, my kids didn't go anywhere alone. They didn't play outside alone. They didn't go outside unless I was out there with them. And this is because I was told these things want to eat children and they want the females and stuff like that. Like I had cautionary tales told to me because these things are real. I didn't understand that when I was younger, but you know, I definitely do now. This is not how I seen me living my life ever. Why am I so afraid of the woods? Well, it's because I know what's out there. I know what's in the dark now. And it's because I know that thing is capable of yanking the hind quarter off of a 900 to 1,000 pound Appaloosa horse and doing it in one yank, just a twist and a yank. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of power. I don't want to fight that thing. I don't want to deal with that. So yeah, it's hard. And for those of the people, and I feel like it's like I have to say this, for those of you who want to go looking for this thing, I'm not trying to protect you. I'm trying to protect your family from losing you. I don't want to see anybody go through that. There are stories that are very, very, very detailed that I've heard that I can't really get into because of the vulgarity of them and the gore of them as to what's happened to certain people and some people here and there. When I say that they will hurt you or harm you, please take into account that that means you losing your life. And that means your family having to wonder where you're at, why you're missing, what's happened to you, what did you go through, what now think about what they have to deal with. Just please don't go looking for these things. With that said, also, it's not just these things you have to worry about, especially where my family comes from. There's no law enforcement. The motto there is where no man dies of natural causes. It's where all of the outlaws and moonshiners and stuff ran to hide from law enforcement that were chasing them. Bonnie and Clyde's been there. John Dillinger's been there. Jesse James and Frank James. All of these outlaws have been through the town that, my grandparents were raised up in, and my parents, my mom was raised up in and stuff like that. And it was called the Outlaw Hideout for a reason. It's in the middle of the woods. There's nothing there. So keep in mind, it's also not just these things you have to worry about. It's the people. They don't want you there. They don't know you. They don't trust you. And if they think for 1 second that you're there to do something you shouldn't be doing, you will come up missing. There's a lot of woods out there and they will never find you. So keep that in mind when you're going off looking for something. Don't just expect that it's the thing you're looking for that is the issue. It's the things around you that you don't take into account. With that said, folks, just be careful. If you're going through something, contact somebody. There's people out there that can help you. You can look up people and then determine on how you get your help yourself, because there's a lot of people out there that are fake about this stuff, and I'm not going to lie about that. You need to determine for yourself who you can trust and who you can't.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves in the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.